Welcome to a Friday. You hear the music playing. Yeah, that's right. Second half of our Berkshire Hathaway bi-weekly podcast. On a Friday, back in the studio again with us today, realty expert John Brodeen. And we'll be back to talk with John in just a minute.
Look, if you want that home, let's go get you that home. And it's okay to feel a little nervous. Or to not know what to look for. Because our network agents have the expertise to take the scary out of buying a home. Well, most of it. Now, let's go get you home.
Well, there you go. And John Brodeen, realty expert, back in the studios with us again today here. John, it's Friday. It's been a couple of days. You look like you're healing up a little bit better.
Yeah, slowly.
Slowly? Have you been back in the gym since then?
Yep.
Okay.
I was back in the next day. That's the way it goes. They can't keep me out of there.
So I was just wondering, when this happened to you, do you go home and put a big old juicy steak on your eye or just a bag of ice? Or how do you do it?
Just a bag of ice, yeah.
Yeah?
It'd be more manly, though, if I used a big old frozen steak. Yeah, I actually left, and I was like, oh, I got to ice this right away.
Yeah?
So, yeah.
You get the trainer to take the dime and maybe cut the eyelid so you can see?
Yeah. Hopefully I don't need to do that. That sounds terrible. But.
Well, you're looking good. When you were in on Wednesday, we were talking about low inventory, fairly hot market.
Yes.
I mean, with low inventory, you're going to have that. And we also talked about the fact how fast houses can sell, where you're getting multiple offers and things like that, which I'm sure can overwhelm some people. They're probably not ready for that. But when you've got a hot market, John, are there common strategies, that you can win with when you have multiple offers on a house?
Yeah, so the market is super hot. It's the hottest market we've seen since 2015. Inventory's down like 100 listings from where we were at last year. It's a strong seller's market. So this is going to be, when a new listing that's attractive and it's priced right hits the market, it's really common to see multiple offers, and buyers are getting more creative with the terms that they're putting into their offers to try to make them more attractive. Some things that we're seeing that, aren't typical and, more balanced market are, obviously offers over asking price. That one's pretty self-explanatory. People are coming in with high offers. They're using escalation clauses. An escalation clause is basically if your listing is priced at $220 and I offered on it, 3 other buyers offered on it, I say, I'll offer you, did I say 220? Yeah, I'll offer you 220 and I'll beat the highest offer by $3,000 all the way up to $230.
Okay.
You're not going to do this and come in at $210 because then you're just going to look cheap. You're not going to do this and say, I'll come in at $220 and I'll beat the highest offer by $200 up to $230 because there's plenty of, if the other offer doesn't have an inspection contingency and it's only a $200 difference, there's tons of things that could make me take an offer that's $200 lower, instead of the $200 higher offer. But you are seeing more escalation clauses, and that's a really nice way for us to help buyers out. You obviously don't want to overpay too much. You want to show the seller that you want it. It's kind of a nice way to make sure to try to get the listing and to try to get the get your offer accepted.
Right. And with an escalation clause, I never knew that there was such a thing. Not to mention, it's going to save you, I would imagine, a lot of work because you've got to try to track these people down. They've got jobs. They're busy. They've got lives.
Yep.
And you're going to say, well, we have this offer. Now you can just say, well, okay, that sounds good. But, we've already got another offer.
Yep. And you usually just get kind of one shot when you're in a multiple offer situation. You want to be the offer that the seller decides to work with. So you want to put your best foot forward, and this is a way to do it. Another thing is not asking for closing cost assistance. Of course, the house has to appraise at the purchase price. So if I were to offer you $225 with $5,000 in closing cost assistance on your $220,000 house, it has to appraise at $225. And if I don't have the money, let's say it appraises at $220. If I don't have the money to come up with that $5,000 that I was asking for you to kick me back at closing, maybe I'm not able to make that happen. And then next thing you know, you're selling it for less than appraised value. So buyers, if they can help it, they're going without those closing cost assistance. You might, you might still see them. People aren't getting rid of them completely. But if you're in a super competitive situation and you can financially swing it, that's a nice way to make your offer more attractive. The other thing we're seeing, so earnest money, whenever you make an offer and your offer is accepted, in the offer you specify how much earnest money you're going to put down. This is like a deposit, right?
Yep.
And so this gets held in the real estate company's trust account until closing, and it gets put towards the buyer's total cash to close at closing. So normally earnest money is refundable. Like, let's say I have a home inspection contingency and an appraisal contingency and a financing contingency. Those are the three most common contingencies. If I back out due to the home inspection, if I have to back out because the appraisal comes in low, if I have to back out because my financing fell through, the way that those contracts are written up is I would get my earnest money back. So you can see how somebody making their earnest money non-refundable, it shows the seller that this is a more sure deal. And even if it doesn't work out, you're going to have something for your time. The whole thing here is making your offer as sure of a deal to the seller as possible.
Right.
The more contingencies, the more variables there are, the less certain it is for the seller, the more things that could go wrong that could cause them to have to take less money or that they could lose the deal. So this is just one of those things,
Is like prepping sellers for multiple offers, is that something you would do with each person you meet with, or is it more now because of the hot market? I mean, is this something that you deal with all the time?
Yeah. Good agents who market properties well and price properties right, they will get multiple offers even in a less hot market than what we have right now. But right now, it's especially important to have kind of a strategy in multiple offers. You don't want to jump on the first one too fast. You want to know what options you have that you could ask for. So yeah, I was dealing with them before, even when the market was less hot. But right now, it's so much more likely, and you just need to make sure you do everything right for your seller because it's going to mean a lot more money to them.
So if you think you can sell your house on your own with no need for a realty expert like yourself or anybody at Berkshire Hathaway, here's just another reason to hire you or to work with you, because say you're trying to sell the house on your own and you've got multiple offers. So right away they're thinking, oh man, who should I call? What should I do?
Yeah.
What's my next step? This would have been taken care of months before.
It would have been taken care of months before. It's super easy for, maybe a for sale by owner, they think that the market's hot right now, so it's going to be easy to sell their home. But through their lack of, experience and knowledge and negotiation skills, it could be really easy for them to leave, $5,000-$7,000 on the table, which would have paid for them to have an agent, which would have been less hassle. Then they've just broken even, and now they had no hassle in the deal. And then there's also the instances where you can save far beyond that, make a lot more money on it, and that realtor really, earned their seller a ton of extra money.
And I like how you call that a hassle, because it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I mean, we have said this since day one with the Berkshire Hathaway Biweekly podcast, how important it is to be ahead of the game, to be on top of all of this. And these are all things that you should be thinking about months beforehand.
Exactly. Yeah, if you put the home up for sale by owner, you're going to have to create all this. If you want to market it as well as an agent, you're going to have hours and hours put into like creating the marketing, and still probably not going to turn out as good. If you can get a professional photographer, you might not know which one or what type of photographer to hire. I use the best, most expensive, wonderful, she's amazing, best photographer in the area for all my listings. And, she does like Zillow virtual tours. She does property videos. Her photos look better than, everybody else that I've ever used. Sellers aren't going to know these things. They're not going to have the connections. They're not going to have the systems in place where they can easily create, really nice marketing to go out. And they're also not going to have the network of agents. Like, it's one thing if you hire a new agent or an agent with a bad reputation to list your home, because that's going to kind of hurt you within that network of agents. But if you don't use an agent at all, you've got all 250 agents who represent pretty much all of the qualified buyers in the market, and they're not working for you. They're not sending your property to buyers. They're not going out of their way to show your property. having an agent on your side, having your property in the MLS, having it marketed properly. Half the battle when you're a listing agent is marketing the property to the agents. The other half is marketing the property to consumers. They're missing that whole half. And you might even be missing that half if you don't hire the right agent.
And hiring the right agent, I would imagine you would want a full-time agent. This is something that you guys do all day long, every day, all night long.
Yep.
I mean, you guys are like on call 24/7. And if you've got a question and say you're with a realtor that's got another full-time job, and you get the answer, well, I'm going to have to wait. I'm at my job right now, so I'll get a hold of you at 5:05 or 6 o'clock tonight or whatever.
Yeah, they're not going to be working behind the scenes, doing all the work that I'm going to be doing. They're not going to be as up to date on the market. It's really not possible for them. Their availability isn't going to be there. They're not going to be responding to phone calls and text messages. They're not going to have the same connection with the heavy hitter agents in town and the reputation with them. So yeah, it's important to have a full-time agent. It's important to have the best agent. Track record, statistics, the type of marketing that they do. You want to see their track record, that what they're doing is working, and you want to see that they're doing every single thing, on the cutting edge, that they're marketing to the agents properly, all that kind of thing.
And you mentioned you've got a great photographer, but now when you were on the show Wednesday, I think you made you talked about maybe one room in the house could use a paint job and carpet. These people aren't going to know this, but you guys do because you guys have been through every scenario. You can tell a person, this isn't ready for the market yet. Do this, or this, or this is perfect, ready to go. Let's get the ball rolling.
And if they're doing it with no guidance, they might say, "Oh, I don't want to replace the carpet because what if the buyer doesn't like it?" That's another common myth. I don't want to repaint this room because what if the buyer doesn't like the paint color? I can tell them exactly what paint color to do. I can tell them exactly how much they should spend on carpet. So if they do this stuff, it's also possible that they don't do the right paint color. It's also possible they spend too much or too little on carpet. I can tell them exactly what they need to do that's going to get them the best bang for their buck. Yeah, sellers always They always, that's always in the back of their mind. Oh, what if the buyer doesn't like it? People don't go into brand new properties. Like when you're looking at new homes, builders don't say, "Oh, I'm not going to paint the walls because what if the buyer doesn't like the paint color?"
Well, I mean,
I'm not going to put flooring on the floors because what if the buyer doesn't like the flooring we chose?
Right. You can walk into a house and be so turned off by a color that you're like, nah, I've seen enough. Or you can walk into a house and they'll go, you know what? With just a little bit of different color paint, this would be perfect.
Yep.
And that's all it takes.
And the thing is, if you get the right caliber of carpet for your type of property, and if you go with a nice neutral on-trend color, you're going to sell for so much more than the house that left that bedroom bright red and left it with their 70s carpet. You maybe spent, let's say tops $1,000 on this stuff, and you spend a weekend of your time, and you're going to be getting thousands and thousands more because more buyers are going to be interested in your property. You don't want a buyer to tour your property and think of any, if you're marketing to a buyer who wants something move-in ready, you want them to walk through your property and you don't want them to see anything they have to do. They want to be able to move in and love it. And you don't even, we tell people, hide your cleaning supplies away. Hide away any of the little things in life about owning a home that people don't like to do, because you don't want them thinking about that when they're shopping. So that's where our advice is going to come in and save people thousands. So back to the buyer side of things, what are people doing to make their offers more attractive? So last thing we talked about was large non-refundable earnest money deposits. That really puts the seller at ease, where if this thing falls apart, they're going to take a good chunk of the buyer's money for their time.
Sure.
The next thing is not having an inspection contingency. That's we always we recommend inspection contingencies to buyers just so that make sure there's no big surprises. They're not buying a home and getting into something they don't know. But if you're comfortable enough with the property and there's other offers, that seller is going to be so much more willing to sell to a buyer who is not going to be doing a home inspection than somebody who is, because that's just another chance where they could get beat up on negotiations, lose money, lose the deal. So just ensuring a smooth process, this is part of that. The other thing is when we're talking about a hot market, we're talking about setting records all the time. Things are selling for, top dollar in the neighborhood, setting new neighborhood records, everything. The appraisers, the house still has to appraise at or above the purchase price, right? In order for the person to get their loan. And sometimes in a hot market where prices are increasing fast, those appraisers are looking at sales that happened 6 months ago, and there might not be a new comp that supports this value, but the market supports this value with the supply and demand. And that's not what the appraisers are looking at. They're not looking at the current market and supply and demand. They're looking at the past comps. So in the event of a low appraisal, if a buyer offers to cover a shortfall, that can also make it more attractive. Say, if this thing appraises $5,000 below the purchase price, instead of the seller thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to have to negotiate down, they get that out of the way right away and say, hey, if this thing appraises $5,000 below purchase price, we're going to cover that difference and still pay you the original purchase price we agreed on. Now, buyer has to have the cash to be able to do that, but it's a way to really put the seller at ease. All those big hurdles, you're kind of taking away all those big hurdles that a seller has to worry about. Inspection, appraisal, different things that could cause the buyer to back out, offering more non-refundable earnest money, all that kind of stuff. The other thing, this might seem simple, and you even do this in not as hot of a market, but catering to the seller's preference on a closing date. So let's say the seller, this is pretty common when the seller has to find a new home after they get their place under contract. And they're not going to have any luck once, until their house is under contract, because people aren't going to look at a contingent offer, right?
Right.
So giving them more time before they have to move out is a huge thing. A lot of sellers are wanting that right now. So it's important for me as the buyer's agent to ask the listing agent, when do the sellers prefer to close? Because if there's 4 offers, 3, and the seller wants as much time as possible, maybe the other 3 agents never even asked, and all their closing dates are 45 days out. And I know the seller wants to close in 70 days, so they have time to find a house, and mine's 70 days out. That might make my offer more attractive to them, even if it's $2,000 less or something. So
I do know a couple that sold a brand new house out of state here recently. The contingency was they had to be out in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. So that's fine. They ended up moving down to Florida. Big deal. They lived in a motel for a couple of weeks until they found their dream home down there.
Yeah. And if that buyer really wanted, to be in it fast, maybe they've got to pay a little more for it to be worth it for the seller to move out in 3 weeks, because that is a lot faster.
Right.
And then, of course, we still do this when it's appropriate, even when the market isn't this hot, but you are seeing, a lot of like personal letters to the seller to put a little bit of a personal connection with that offer.
Okay.
Those are always great, especially when the homeowner's been in the home for a long time and has a really deep emotional connection to the property.
This is kind of turning into an educational show, these Berkshire Hathaway biweekly podcasts, because John, I learned something new every day.
Good. Yeah, I hope it's not too stale and boring, but for the buyers out there, this is stuff that could really, really help them get that home of their dreams.
Well, when I'm done with this big gig someday, maybe I'll be a realtor and I can just say, hey, these guys taught me everything I know.
John taught me everything he knows. Now I'm going to take all his clients. Just
How does somebody get a hold of you, John Brodeen?
701-213-5428. Follow my Facebook page, John Brodeen, Berkshire Hathaway Realtor. I post market updates every month. Lots of educational content like this.
Thank you, John, and have yourself a great weekend, man.
Always good to be here with you guys.
And
Thanks.
you know what? If you're thinking about listing your house with John Brodeen and maybe need a little bit of work done to it before it's ready to sell, get a hold of Executive Properties. They can get the work done for you. They do all types of commercial and residential work: kitchen, bathrooms, doors, siding, concrete, cabinets, trim and tile. They've got some senior and referral discounts. They're willing to work with any budget. If you need some stuff done, check them out. You can check out the reviews on Facebook and Google too. Call them up, Executive Properties, 701-330-1273, or go to executiveproperties.org. Well, there you go, the second half of your Berkshire Hathaway bi-weekly podcast with realty expert John Brodeen, and we'll see who comes in on Wednesday. Have yourself a great weekend, everybody.